Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Thenau Sediment, and today we're going to taste 6 red wines from 6 different winemaking regions, all from the same vintage, to see which one actually has developed the best. There are certain wines that immediately come to mind when talking about great aging potential. Bordeaux certainly, Napa next to it. So today I have decided to put some of these iconic age-worthy wine styles and regions side by side and see which one shows the best aging potential. And yes, some styles may still be missing. But instead of feeling upset about what is not included, suggest to me which region or wine style you would like me to taste next against today's winner. Of course, we have to understand that wine's aging potential does not solely depend on region and its terroir. We also have to talk about grape varieties and their characteristics, such as acidity and tannin. Wine style, including sugar level and alcohol content, will also have a significant influence on wine's ability to age. And we cannot forget the overall balance and quality, because you and we can discuss tannin and acidity aiding in wine's lifespan, but in reality, all these structural elements don't do very much if the wine is lacking in overall quality and balance for development. And of course, we have to understand that we are discussing a single vintage across the globe. Sometimes there is a significant difference even between villages in the same region, let alone between wines from very different climates, thousands of kilometers apart. In addition to that, we have to understand that each grape variety reacts differently to weather, and indeed, each grape variety prefers different weather conditions. For example, 2017 was not particularly great year in Champagne, but Chardonnay did so much better than Pinot Noir. Which is why when choosing wines from that specific vintage in Champagne, I would be focusing more on Chardonnay producers and Chardonnay-based wines. Some grapes bud earlier, exposing themselves to an increased risk of late spring frost, while others require a long maturation period that can be disrupted by unpredictable autumn weather. Grenache withstands drought and heat better than Syrah or Merlot, for example. So no, this is not a perfect experiment. But if we really want to compare how these wines develop with age, we have to taste across all regions with a single vintage in mind. And if we really want to talk seriously about development and aging capacity, then we need wines with some real age on them. At least 10 years. Now, there's no question that great aging potential is not exclusive to red wines. Whites, sparkling wines, and most certainly fortified wines can also age gracefully. But today, we are focusing on red wines alone. Shall we taste and see which region comes on top? Like I said, all 6 wines come from 6 different winemaking regions, and the same vintage that unites them is 2012. So the wines are around 14 years old. I have quite classic winemaking regions. Here I have Bordeaux, I have Napa, I have Amarone, I have Barolo, and I think I have Stellenbosch. And there's also one wild card that I entered here, and I'm not going to tell you from which region or grape variety it is made from. But as always, these wines were poured by my cameraman, so I don't know which one is which, and I guess you will have to guess or make educated decisions on the wines with me. So let's start with wine number 1. Alright, so this is not the deepest colored wine. It does show some age as well, because we do have that brownish or brickish rim, but in the core it is still garnet and not that inky. Nose is still dominant by black and blueberries. They are maybe slightly dryish in a character, but definitely there's still a lot of energy. And the berries are so prominent and so intense, this wine is really inviting. However, on the very beginning when I nosed the wine, it had that smoky character to it, maybe slight hint of meatiness. And now as this wine is opening up, I feel some green olive maybe, or some rosemary or thyme, like dried herbal characters. It seems very inviting and very charming on the nose. Let's taste it. Wow, the acidity is elevated, lively, juicy. It adds a bit of freshness to the wine, to that really ripe fruit profile, but definitely not overripe. And what I really love about this wine is that chalky tannin texture. It just covers your palate. It adds seriousness. It adds grown-upness to the wine and to the really ripe fruit profile that I was describing in the beginning. If the alcohol is elevated here in this wine, it is perfectly integrated within the fruit, within the body of the wine. I don't particularly feel it, neither on the first sip nor on the finish. On the finish, it is actually that chalky tannin texture, that slightly wilted black cherry skin that I feel. And I will give this wine 92 points. I think for 14-year-old wine, this wine is holding its ground quite well. Let's move to wine number Let's move to wine number two. All right, so this one is that much more intense on the color. Yeah, it is deep and inky. And if I would have to guess the vintage, I would not say that this is 10 plus years old wine, because you maybe only start to see that slightly orangey, brickish character, you know, that tone on the rim, but it is overall quite deeply colored wine, showing no signs of aging, at least in the color. On the nose, you have that really intense, ripe black currant bush. I am saying bush because it is all the berries that you have on the bush, and you also have those, you know, when you crack the bush, the woody part of it, it's also very, very aromatic. You feel it a lot. So there's hint of that pyrazine character as well. There's some sweet spices, some vanilla to the wine. And of course, if I would have to speculate about the grape variety, it screams Cabernet Sauvignon, because we have that blackcurrant, we have that cassis, we have that slight pyrazine tone. But it is quite earthy and spicy as well. Yeah, I've been talking a lot about its nose, so let's taste it. All right, when I smelled the wine at first, it was so open and it screamed Cabernet, and I had the question in my mind, could it be from Napa? But when you taste it, it is actually so much slimmer, and it has that really chalky, that elevated, slightly grippy tannin texture. Definitely not as powdery as maybe with wine number one. Here you really can feel that backbone of Cabernet Sauvignon. You also have that elevated acidity that, together with that really slim body, is rarely found in Napa. I will give this wine 91.5 points. Let's move to wine number three. Wine number three, you are really interesting. You're quite pale. Quite pale color gives you indication of grape varieties that could follow. And it is not particularly fruity wine. There's some smoke and some mushrooms and earthy elements of turned earth and forest floor and autumn leaves. Somewhere in the background you have dried strawberries, those summer strawberries and raspberries. Now this is mysterious on the nose. This is spooky. This is fog. I don't know, like, you know, when you just see the shapes of forests and animals and trees instead of the like whole colored picture. Okay, so the way my mouth is pulled together by the tannin, it screams a certain grape variety. Of course, the color helps here, and the elevated acidity helps. So this wine definitely tells where it is coming from, despite the fact that it is 14-year-old wine. It is really interesting because the wines, as they age, in a way, sometimes they get similar to each other. And at some point when they're really, really old, there might come situation when the old has overpowered the terroir expression or even grape variety. In this case, the impressive mouth coating, completely drying tannin texture, that really elevated acidity that is still watering my mouth while I speak with you, says or whispers to me that this is Nebbiolo. There is one thing that is missing in this specific wine, for me personally at least, is the mid-palate. And Barolos can have this really charming, generous mid-palate. But here I feel like the tannin made the frame and there's not a huge or highly beautiful or colorful picture in the frame within. So I will give this wine 90 points. Let's move to wine number 4. Wow, this is interesting wine on the nose because I feel a lot of toasty elements, but toasty elements like coffee bean, like black chocolate. They're spicy. This is so interesting and unique. And the fruit, maybe some dried black cherry or dried plum character. This wine is puzzling my mind because as I nose it, it maybe slightly evaporates and start to show some of that fruit as well. But in general, I would say that that toastiness really dominates the nose. Let's move to the tasting. Yeah, this is interesting wine. There is, at first sip that you feel, there is slight sneak peek of some sweetness, or fruit ripeness, but it just evaporates quite quickly, leaving that really fresh, but still quite ripe fruit profile. And those fruit are those black raspberries, those forest berries, blueberries, and blackberries. The nose still puzzles me because of that toastiness, but that toastiness not like, that beautiful sweet toast character coming from oak, but that maybe almost slightly burnt character. That is interesting. Even though on the palate you have that really beautiful juicy acidity and it's so masterfully integrated within the wine, and the tannin is just, masterfully playing on the cheeks instead of covering, or overpowering your palate. I will also give this wine 90 points. I think this wine confuses me, but it will be interesting to reveal it and come back to it. So let's move to wine number 5. Another deeply colored red wine, inky red wine. Wow. On the nose, we have such a generous, intense character. We have blueberries and blackberries and ripe black cherries, plums here. And that fruit is really intense and just showing off. However, it also has that spicy, earthy character, slightly toasty, sweet toast character that adds, a bit of shape to the fruit or a bit of frame to the fruit, as opposed in comparison to wine number 4, where that toastiness was slightly irritating my nose. You just smell this wine and it's going to be big and opulent and quite generous with everything. Let's taste it. Wine number 5 is the slightly naughty child playing, on the edge of the rules and see how far they can go. I think that this style might not be particularly fashionable nowadays because it is luscious and it is rich and full-bodied. And it has beautiful acidity, but it is more that ripeness of fruit that shines on the palate. And of course, it also shines on the nose. But it is really, really charming. Wine number 5 is like one of those people that are beautiful in their own unique way. And maybe they're a bit rude, or maybe they sometimes say things that are not appropriate, but you love them anyways. And they have this kind heart. So this is what wine number 5 represents to me. I love the really sweet tasting tannin here in this wine. And it just makes altogether a really beautiful, albeit not completely fashionable, but really beautiful picture. And I love it for it. I will give this wine 95 points. I love it. Let's move to wine number 6. By the way, wine number 5, not a lot of age. It showed. Maybe I feel, slight hint of, dried autumn leaf or some earthy character to it. But it definitely didn't show a lot of age. It felt really youngish. Wine number 6. All right. So wine number 6 actually does show some age. It is brownish, specifically with significantly brownish rim. And wine number 6, it shows that really significant red berry-driven flavor on the nose, but those cherries, those strawberries and raspberries we are talking about, they're dried. There's some leathery note character to it, some damp earth. There is some earthiness to this wine. Let's taste it. I think wine number 6 has similar charm as wine number 5. It is rich and opulent, but it has some reservations. There is this earthiness. As with wine number 5, this wine was really, all about fruit, all about luscious, ripe, sometimes even overripe fruit profile. But wine number 6, it has that unapologetical European soul. So it is not all about fruit. Yes, fruit is part of its being, but it has that earthy, that forest floor, that dried fruit character, that leathery element to it. And it also shows that complexity on the palate. For me, it shows really long aftertaste. Yes, wine number 6 shows that slightly sweetish tasting throughout, its development on the palate. But still, it is those dried fruit that I feel on the aftertaste. It is that really beautiful, really ripe type of tannin on the palate. I think this wine is quite magnificent as well. Interestingly, it shows way more age than maybe other of the wines that we tasted did, but there is still a lot of charm. I think this wine is really lovely and I quite enjoy it in this early morning. I will give this wine 93 points. Shall we reveal the wines? All right, we will start with the lowest scored wines, and that was wine number 4 and wine number 3. Let's start with wine number 4. No way. No. This was the wild card. I have tasted this wine on several occasions and I usually really loved it. And I am surprised that I did not enjoy it as much this time. Oh my. All right, this is interesting. Anyway, this is Birgit Braunstein Blaufrankisch Ried Thenau, so a single vineyard, single site from Burgenland, Leitaberg, if I'm not mistaken. This is 2012 vintage. I usually love this wine quite a lot. Maybe it is an issue of bottle variation. As the wines get older, it could be the case. But Birgit makes some of the top Blaufrankisch in Austria. And there is no doubt about it, and I will still fight for it, saying that Blaufrankisch can age beautifully. All right, let's move to wine number 3. I think we are up for a lot of surprises. So wine number 3. It also received 90 points from my side. Yeah, with wine number 3, I kind of knew that this was Barolo. It was Nebbiolo. It had that unique color, that, you know, that signature tannin on the palate. So this is 2012. 2012 was not particularly easy vintage. It was quite challenging. And we are with Rivetto within the Serralunga village. Serralunga makes these fuller bodied wines, more expressive in a way, you know, more structured, that can age really gracefully. And you know, I love Enrico Rivetto and his wines. But this wine, yes, as I told you, I felt that maybe on the mid palate, this specific bottle was slightly lacking, but I think it is still interesting to see how Barolo and Nebbiolo has developed over the age. Anyway, let's move to the wine number 2, which I gave 91.5. I give 0.5. Chateau Phelan Segur 2012 Saint-Estephe. Some of you might say, and I would agree, that I did not do justice to Bordeaux, because in all honesty, Bordeaux probably is one of the first winemaking regions that come to your mind when you think about wines that can age. And by justice, I mean some of the wines that I have chosen for this tasting. They are quite expensive. And of course, Phelan Segur might not be playing on the same level. However, I do think that Phelan Segur makes beautiful wines, and especially starting from 2009 and 2010 onwards, and they have really upped their game. So 12 was a complex vintage in Bordeaux. It was not as easy as with 2009 and 2010, of course, where you can buy whatever wines more or less you want to, or you can find, and you sure will get some really good bargains. 12, you really should have looked for good producers. But I think despite the fact that this was not the highest praised estate, it still did so good within the tasting, and it was not awkward or dragging its feet behind with its lost breath of air. It was still playing with the big guys. So let's move to wine number 1, I think, which I gave 92 points. Now we are in South Africa, Stellenbosch, Forrester wines, the Gypsy 2012. So, Forrester is actually known for their Chenin Blanc. They make amazing Chenin Blanc. Their Chenin Blanc has been, I think, on my top 10 wines of the year. I make top 10 as well. And I really enjoy his winemaking style. He is also a character as a personality, and I'm really looking forward to interview him one day. Hopefully that will come. And this wine is made from Grenache and Syrah, from old vineyards, old vines in the area. And I mean, I was so impressed by this wine. It had the problem to be the very first wine on the early morning that I'm tasting and doing this video. I might have given it a bit higher mark as well. I still remember that chalky tannin texture. I really enjoy it. But I also wanted to show you something. For all of you skeptics out there, you see? It has a screw cap. We cannot open it, but it has a screw cap. And it has lived under the screw cap for 14 years, less probably, because it was aged in oak for a while, so maybe around 10 years. It aged beautifully. It didn't show a lot of, that aged character, and it still holds its fruit quite well. So screw cap, you can buy wines under the screw cap and you can still age them. Let's move to wine number 6. How many points I gave this wine? I think I gave this wine 94 points. Yes, I was asking myself, could this be Amarone della Valpolicella from Pra, Morandina? And when I was asking myself, when I was tasting this wine, one of the questions that I asked was, I think this is Amarone. And I think the Amarones usually has really high alcohol levels, and this one has 16.5. I didn't feel it. It is so well integrated. And this is the crime and punishment of Pra wines, of Pra Amarone specifically, because they taste so good. The alcohol is so well integrated within their wines. You enjoy them, you taste them, you drink them, you love them. And then you notice that you're completely drunksies afterwards. They just taste so well. And to be honest, I was really skeptical about Amarone being one of those wines that could age. A lot of you people have suggested in the comment sections on other of my videos saying that Amarone can also age. I never included it in one of my videos. But in reality, this tasting shows that it can age. One of the hesitations that I usually would argue about Amarone and its aging is it because it is made from dried grapes. And already during that drying process, you might get some disease in the fruit, you might get some volatile acidity a bit more. So of course, I always questioned myself, could it really age that well afterwards? But Pra has showed that it can age magnificently. It is interesting to know that Pra is actually a white wine maker. So they focus more on their Suaves, but this is amazing. I've never been disappointed about their Amarones. And wine number 5 with whopping 95 points. That charm, that, flesh. I already know which one we don't have. Inglenook Estate, Napa Valley, Rutherford, California, Rubicon, 2012. I bought this wine at the winery long time ago when I was visiting the estate. It is a beautiful place to be. I also quickly looked and sought any information about the vintage, and apparently it was really good vintage. It had no heat spikes and no drought periods and not a lot of rain. So it allowed grapes and wines to mature, in that harmony. And this has resulted in really beautiful wine. It is Cabernet dominant, I think, but there are other grape varieties included. Wow. I have waited quite a long time to open it. And who would have known that I will open it on YouTube channel and tasting with you guys. It is really, really beautiful wine. I really liked it. It is jolly wine as well, but I think there was a lot of seriousness about it as well. Guys, if you like this video, I would appreciate a lot if you would also subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel, and I think it also helps you a bit if you want to keep up with the No Sediment wine videos. Please let me know in the comment section below if you would like me to continue similar videos to these, which regions and which vintages I should cover next. And make sure to continue watching No Sediment with this video.